No, we are ready.
Okay, we're ready.
Good
Hi.
morning. Welcome to Tzuzamen.
Yeah, welcome to Tzuzamen. Hi, Tzili.
Hi, Tzipi.
We are here in order because we would like to...
אתם מעדיפים אנגלית? אתן מעדיפות אנגלית?
First of all, we're recording. So if you rather to speak in Hebrew, we can switch to Hebrew. We'll always contemplate between Hebrew and English. This is really a tough point, but as you like.
It's up to you.
You know, what you prefer.
English, Hebrew.
If it's in English, you can open up the eyes of other people who don't know Hebrew.
Outside of Israel.
Because most Israelis know Hebrew, know English.
Okay, all right.
Let's try in English. You can always stop and start at the beginning.
I'll do my best.
Okay, I'm sure your best is better than mine. Okay, I'm sure. So the man that we are talking to, we can see him now. It's Hanan Snir, who is
one of the top theater directors in Israel.
Okay,
I know you don't like to say it, but it's true.
He also adapted few books.
He does adaptations. He directs.
He's dramaturg also, of course.
Yes.
And there is something very unique about psychodrama, because
very big part.
He can tell us he took quite an interesting journey from his hometown, which is a kibbutz.
No, he was born in Tel Aviv.
No,
yeah, he was born in Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
Oh, but grew up in a kibbutz?
He was in his youth. He was in the
kibbutz after the army with the Nachal.
Okay, so he got some good.
He's like us.
Yes, which means he has like a good basis of values, right? Mm-hmm. And honesty, which is kind of very important now in our life in Israel. And also, he's also using, he will tell us, psychodrama not only to take care of people, but also is using it in the theater.
Right.
So I think it's not a good idea that I speak on his behalf. Hanan.
So Hanan, when you direct, it's a kind of a treatment or it's just directing?
The answer is very simple. No. No, I don't. Many people or many critics might say that I use psychodrama when I direct, but I don't think it's true. And if it's true, it's not conscious, because I don't treat my actors and I don't use it consciously. Psychodrama. It's something which I know, which I practice. I practice with other people. When I do treatment with people, mainly with groups, or I teach psychodrama. But when I do theater, you might discover some traits of psychodrama in my work, but it's not I would say intentional. It's not intentional. It's not very conscious. It's there, you know.
You don't mean to cross the line. When you do the psychotherapy, you try not to direct and the other way. Because in many ways, when director is directing a play, he's working with the actors in a very psychological way. And developing the characters, it's very psychological way. So,
yeah. If it's part of my let's say practice or education, of course it's there, but it's not there's no intention to do it. But you know, there's a difference, or maybe a big difference between, I would say, directing maybe in Israel than in England, for example, because in Israel most of the directors, I believe, are also teachers of acting.
Mm-hmm.
In England, when you direct, you believe that you don't have to teach acting the actors. They are very professional, so you don't have really to teach acting. The time of rehearsals is much shorter. When I direct, I take a very long time, maybe the longest, definitely longer than in England, but even the longest in Israel, because I take like 3 months of rehearsals, which is really a very long time.
Long journey, yeah.
It's a very long time, it's a very long journey, it's a very experiential journey. I don't come very prepared with a stage book that I would say, okay, now you go from left to right, from left to right, and because it's a journey and it's experiential, you know, and I try by a trial and error, you know, with the actors. So I prepare myself basically by, I would say, investing the area of the subject, learning about the author or the playwright. There is a lot of research. I take many notes before, but when I start directing, even if I write it in the script, even if I write the stage notes, I tell the actors just ignore it. Don't ignore whatever this idiot that wrote the play, whatever he wrote, just forget about it. We'll just start.
So you look at the actors and you also drive from them. So, like for example, an actor feel like he needs to walk now. This is a need of the character that he's portraying. So you will go with him.
I tell them, first of all, do what you feel about the scene or about your action. Let me look at it. And maybe I would learn something which I haven't thought about. You know, maybe I learned something new.
I can witness, because I did a show with Hanan, and it was a very interesting experimental process. He knows where he comes from, he knows where he goes to, but it's still experimental process, and it's always surprising and beautifully weaved towards the final solution.
You know that when I teach directing students, I tell them I wish that you will come fully prepared, including really know which shots you want to use and the blocking and everything. I mean, how the actors move, then put it aside. So you will be open to everything that happened on the set, you know, but you always, if there is a problem, you can fall back on whatever you prepared. But when you do, like, let's say a reading, do you walk through like emotional beats or, you know, the emotional arc of the character? Or you talk with them?
When I do a reading?
Yes, when you do the first reading with the actors that are already were casted, you don't do a reading?
No, when I do a reading, it's a pure reading. I don't talk about emotions. I don't talk about anything. It's only a reading. Now, what comes to my mind now.
What do you look for in this first reading with the actors?
I look for their intuition.
Oh.
I look for what they feel about it, because I know what I feel about it, because I choose the play or I wrote the play. So I have my intentions. I don't want to tell them, at least in the first stage, what are my intentions. Never. I want to know what are their intention, what their intuition, what they understand from it, what they feel about it.
That's fabulous.
I don't want to induce my ideas, at least in the beginning, because at the end, it's a meeting. It's a meeting point between my ideas about it and their ideas about it, because every actor, I feel, is unique. Yes. And he brings forward his ideas, his childhood, his traumas, his wishes, you know. What comes to my mind now is the difference between directing an opera and theater, because I just directed an opera, which is not finished yet. Just first of all, because of Corona, and secondly, because my protagonist, I did Romeo and Juliet opera. And Juliet, fortunately for her and unfortunately for me, got pregnant. And she's going to have a baby in May. I had to stop the rehearsals until she's going to give birth. And then only in June, I'm going to continue and finish in August.
Wow.
So the big difference is that in opera, the singers, they come very prepared. They're supposed to know all the opera by heart. They're supposed to know it by heart, okay? Wow. And then it's only the directing. So this opera was never done in Israel. So there is no, they don't know any stage direction, but in most of the operas, every opera singer has a repertoire. 5, 6, 7, 10 operas that he knows by heart in the original language. Because this opera that I'm doing now is in Italian. So most of the operas are in Italian or in German or in English, but most of them are in Italian. So they know the opera by heart. I don't have to teach them the opera, because there is also a conductor. And so it's only the directing. That's why it takes less time.
Yes.
For opera, we have at the most 5 weeks. In theater, I have 3 months.
But Hanan, what happens?
Can you sit a little bit back? Can you?
Oh, yes.
Sit back a little bit. Yeah, further away from the.
What happens if the choices of an actor are not exactly what you like? Or are you trying to get to a place that you find a common ground that you can work from there? Or did you ever get to a point that you had to change an actor?
Well, usually it doesn't happen because you have many auditions and you have many trials before, many readings. Sometimes you change the readings. When the readings, you change the actors. But it happened to me at least 2 or 3 times in my life that I had to change an actor during the rehearsals. And it's a very sad experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the
I have to stop a film because I made a mistake in the casting.
But it's important to say that it's not necessarily that the actor is not good. It sometimes just doesn't work together with the way of the director. And it doesn't fit the material or the way of looking at things. Yeah. It's not necessarily.
Listen, Hanan, if I may, because we did mention psychodrama, she asked you whether you use it or not. Can we first tell the audience what is it? Like pause from the theater and go to psychodrama so we can know how you use it, if you use it in the theater. So can you talk about psychodrama? Okay. I don't know how many people know really much about it.
Okay. Well, psychodrama is a method, or I would rather say an action method, an action therapy, which was really invented by somebody called Moreno about 100 years ago. And the main difference between the usual psychotherapy, let's say Freud, which is a talking therapy, okay, which is really, Freud coined it as a talking therapy, okay? And psychodrama, in psychodrama, I would say, don't tell me, show me, okay? So rather than if I have a problem, an issue, or something I want to talk about in a usual therapy, so in psychodrama, instead of talking about it, I am presenting it dramatically, okay? Which means that, well, I said the best way to do psychodrama is in a group, but you can do psychodrama with the couples, with family, and even individually. So let's say that we have a group, okay? So in a group, everybody comes to therapy in the group, okay? So usually I tell you the stages of the psychodrama. So usually we start with the warm-up. So the warm-up can be physical, it can be emotional, and from the warm-up,
emotional?
I mean, we try to talk about certain emotions that the individuals in the group have. Let's say Corona. So the warm-up can be also something which everybody has in common at that time. Is what is the problem now that you were experiencing during this time? Solitude. Not being able to work, being very, very lonely, economic problems, not being able to hug your father, mother, grandmother. All that are emotions which become heightened in this time of this plague of Corona, because everything, the emotions are very heightened, okay? So the warm-up, the intention of the warm-up to bring up from the group the protagonist. The protagonist is the one who is going to present his own issue, his own problem, okay?
So it's every time, every moment you might use different protagonists.
Let's say it again, ask it again.
So if when you meet in a group, each person is representing a protagonist, which is himself.
Each member of the group is a potential protagonist.
Okay.
Right? We call it protagonist. We don't call it a patient. Okay? Why? Because in psychodrama, we are not looking mainly, I would say, for the...
You can say it in Hebrew.
No, even Hebrew. I can't find the word at the moment.
That's okay.
They're not looking for the clinical problem, okay, for the clinical issue. I'm just losing the word, but I remember in a minute. We're looking for the strength and the assets of the that's why we don't call him the patient. Because when you talk about the patient, we might think about somebody who is weak, who is not very, very strong. We are looking for the strength and we call it, why we call him protagonist? Because the protagonist is the hero of the drama.
But Hanan, just a second. So when you build a group, if you work with a group, is intentional group, or it's just by chance a group of people that want to come together for therapy?
You select them?
And how do you start the whole process? Like, I'm telling you that I would like to join. What do you do?
Mainly there are two kinds of groups. Let's say there are many kinds, but basically two kinds. One, it can be a casual group, which can be different people that come for therapy. Each one has his own issue. Mm-hmm. Or you can have homogeneous group, more homogenic group of a special issue, like women who were abused, okay? Or men in a prison, in a men prison, or in a women prison, they are prisoners. Or they are children with emotional problems. Or it can be older people, you know, in a home of older people. Or it can be people in a hospital with depression, okay? So if the group is more homogeneous, yes, so the group has a common issue of all the members of the group. Mm-hmm. So this is one kind of group, okay? Or it can be a group of people that just walk in and they just decide they want to try to have therapy in psychodrama, and then each one has his own issue, okay? So if I come back to this warm-up of the group, there is a competition. Who is the one that is going to work today on his or her issue, okay?
So and how are they chosen?
Okay, so I mean, again, it's very complicated to explain it, but I'll just say it in few words. Let's say that one wants to work on an inner issue, okay? A personal issue, which is not, how shall I say, like, let's say depression. Depression, it's not between you and me, it's my own interpersonal issue, okay? Or assertiveness, okay? Or shyness. Okay, so this is something which is like an inner personal issue. Or it can be an issue of relationship, okay? Me and my wife, you and your daughter, you and your father, you and your boss. So it's interpersonal relationship, okay? So each member of the group, whoever wants to present himself to be a protagonist, which is the hero of the action, and it's important, the name protagonist portray immediately the way we're going to work, because we like to intensify the strength of the protagonist rather than his weakness.
Yeah.
Okay? Not the word I was looking as this pathology. We are not looking for the pathology. We are looking for the strength of the protagonist.
It's almost the journey of a hero.
The journey of the hero. There is really a book like that.
The lead actor and the choir. Yeah.
Jung was really very interested about the hero and the journey of the hero.
Yes.
Okay. So some people would say they would like to be the protagonist. Okay. One with depression, somebody else with they had the problem last week that the husband left the home, or the daughter was very violent, etc., etc., etc. So let's say that 5 people present the issue they would like to work on. So sometimes I would ask them, can you decide between yourself for whom it is more essential, more important to work today? Okay?
Because it's urgent for them, because it's urgent for him.
Sorry?
Is it for more important for this person, it's more urgent?
More urgent, like your depression can maybe wait another week, unless you say that you feel suicidal.
Yes.
If you feel suicidal, so it's emergency that you're going to work today.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Or if your husband left, if you just discovered, unfortunately, that yesterday you discovered that you have cancer. Okay. So now it's very, very urgent today to relate to it. Okay. But if you're talking about relationship with your husband, that it's ongoing, so you can work about it maybe next week. Okay. So the potential protagonists can decide between themselves.
So they have to come to agreement
They have to come to agreement. Yes. And then some people will just decide they can postpone it for next week or next month. And they will decide who is going to where.
And if you're there and you don't agree,
I as a leader of the group, I don't decide.
Okay.
I don't decide what is more important. Everything is important.
By the way, you also empower them.
If they can't come, if they can't come to an agreement.
Yeah.
Another way is to tell the group to take a vote to decide who they think it's more important for him or her to work today. And they come by choosing, okay?
Right.
One would get 6 votes, one would get 4 votes, and one would get one vote, okay? So because we have to remember that the protagonist is not working only for himself, but he's working also for the group.
Yeah, it's empowerment.
There are some other people in the group, some other women in the group that have the issue with their husband, or some have a problem with a son or daughter. Some people have a problem in her work. So the protagonist is going to work for the most people in the group. Okay, so that's how we choose the protagonist. And as soon as we choose the protagonist, I'll say it very quickly because it takes a long time. As soon as we choose a protagonist, he's telling us, like an interview, like an intake, like an every usual meeting between a patient and a protagonist. This is the work. Yesterday, I had a fight with my wife and she left home. Okay?
Can you sit back again? Can you sit back?
Well.
I'll remind you. Okay.
Okay, remind me, okay?
Yes,
I'm trying to hear, so I come closer. So it happened yesterday. So let's go to the first scene, okay? Let's see what happened. Because, I would say, in English, we say, I see what you mean. What does it mean when you say, I see what you mean? I understand, okay? Or understand what you mean, okay? I see what you mean. Now I understand. When you tell me, I understand. But in psychodrama, We literally see it. It's not only you're talking, you say, I'm telling you something and say, I see what you mean. In psychodrama, we really see it with our eyes. What you mean? We see a
so we more sympathize. It causes us to sympathize more with you.
Of course. Look, you understand much more rather than I speak to you and you listen to me.
Right.
That you use not only listening but also seeing and feeling. You see, of course, it induces more empathy. You can feel my emotions. You can experience it in vivo, firsthand. And even if you see a scene from my childhood, in psychodrama, like in theater, everything is happening in the present,
right.
Here and now.
Right.
Here and now is a term that was coined by Moreno, the father of psychodrama. We use
he took it. I mean, it's when, as we know, it's when we teach, there is no flashbacks, only flash present. So if I remember myself at 5 years old, I'm actually 5 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So even when you were 5 years old when your father really abused you, okay? You were 5 years old. If we see it now. It's happening now. Sometimes it's too difficult. So too difficult even to watch it because you were in such an early age, and sometimes it'd be difficult for you even to play, to act it out, okay? So I'll talk about some techniques of psychodrama in a minute. So we go from one scene to another scene. It can be seen from the past, from the present, or even from the future, okay? Or a dream. So we can go from one scene to another scene. And the way it works is if your issue is with your father or your husband, you choose a member of the group to play the significant person, okay? You choose somebody, it can be a man or a woman, to play your father.
The protagonist choose or you choose?
The protagonist, only the protagonist.
Okay.
The actor doesn't choose what you're going to work on, when you work, how much you're going to work on. It's only the protagonist. He's choosing the place. If it happened in the kitchen or in the garden, he is going to set the stage using chairs. Okay.
That's
Here
really
was this is the kitchen. Here is the door. Here's the sink. My mother or father was standing here. I was standing here, etc., etc., etc. Okay. So once you choose we call it the auxiliary ego, to play the role for you, okay?
Oh,
so the group member, he doesn't know how to act the scene. He doesn't know your father or your boss, okay? So we are going to reverse role. And first of all, you are going to be your husband, and he, which means you, is going to tell you in the empty chair or the other chair whatever he told you.
Wow. So basically the scene is being written or being acted at the spot from your side, from the other side, and you flip sides all the time. So
that's right. You reverse role.
So the narrative can change. The narrative might change if I.
Of course, we don't know.
I talk to in the words of feelings of my father. I may change the narrative.
In theater, I know the text. There is text. Yes. In psychodrama, there is no text. Wow. It's created in the here and now, spontaneously.
But it's not improvisation. Because it's not based on.
It's kind of.
But there is also part of improvisation, but basically it is based on facts, on truth.
Yes.
Okay? So if you had a fight with your husband, a very crucial fight, very aggressive fight. So he's going to tell you in a few words something, but the one who is going to tell it is you instead of him. Now, the man that you decided to choose from the group is going to repeat exactly the line that you say in the same intonation, and then you're going to reverse role and you're going to answer him. Okay, So this role reversal is the most important technique in psychodrama, because you are going to be in your own role, but you're also going to be in the role of your father or your husband. Okay.
Wow. We will later we'll talk about it, that you should use it also for resolving conflicts. Listen to the other and into the world of the other, but later we'll do it.
So let me just finish the process of psychodrama. So we've gone from one scene to another scene. So if you had this issue with your husband, I'm going to ask you, did it happen before? Do you remember such a scene from before with your husband? Is there a pattern that repeats itself? Do you remember something like that with your parents? And then we are going to go and you're going to choose your parents from the group. And we are going to see a scene from your childhood. So we are going back and forth to different scenes until many times we get to the most heightened scene, which is a catharsis, which is the most emotional scene that you experience. There's a lot of emotions in this scene. And in this scene, we have like emerge integration of thoughts and very, very strong feelings, okay? You might cry, you might scream. Most of the groups are going to cry and have very, very strong emotions. This is what Aristo called the catharsis, and Moreno called it integrative.
You say integrity? Yeah. Integrity?
Integrative, because it's not only what we call abreaction, okay? Only expressing of emotions, because gradually we would like to have this kind of integration of feelings and thoughts and movement, okay, which comes together in this very heightened point of the psychodrama.
And the moment later is a moment of realization. You know, the moment later, something changed.
It's also realization. This is a very good point. After the catharsis, something is bound to change.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because the climate, and if you think dramatically, because see that I'm right? The dog is
the dog. Wait. The dog is actually.
You see, the moment of the catharsis, the dog started to bark.
Yes, right.
Okay, you see, because it's part of the group. The term catharsis, which is a very important issue, I'm not sure I have the time to explain it, but Aristo mentioned catharsis about the drama, because the model of Aristoteles was Oedipus, okay?
Oh, okay.
The process of psychodrama is exactly the dramatic process of Oedipus, okay? Because psychodrama is going on the same pattern of the Greek tragedy, of the drama. So after the catharsis, we are starting to cool down the protagonist. Then, as you say, there is a point maybe of a change, of expanding the repertoire of the protagonist. Maybe you can do it differently in other ways. There is a change of behavior. There is a corrective experience. Okay, all that happens after the catharsis. And
but
then,
Hanan, just a second, because at the process, basically, everybody brings a different experience or a different pain for the reason that they came to the group. But basically, they go through everybody's issues. So, and they play all the parts that each one brings to the group. So you go from
not at the same time. No.
Not at the same time, but one case after case after case after case.
Well, usually in a psychodrama group, okay, when I do psychodrama, I take 4 hours. Some take less. I'm very slow. I'm a very slow person. I take a long time. In psychodrama, also in the theater. So basically, the group is 4 hours. So the first 2 hours, we start the processing of the previous psychodrama from last week.
Okay.
Then you have the warm-up. And the psychodrama itself, a classical psychodrama, takes 2 hours. But we work only with one protagonist at the time.
Right.
See what I mean?
But when you do the first 2 hours based on the previous one, so the protagonist is a different one.
Not all the 2 hours based on the previous one. Okay. Some of it just have, you know, when we start the group, I'm doing a pulse. Okay. Each member of the group, let's say there are 12 people, each one is speaking about himself. How does he come to the group today? Mm-hmm. What happened to him today or last week? What is his issue? Yes. Let's speak about the corona. Everybody experienced it. There are many things in common, but everybody experienced it differently. So each one is going to say, you know, I miss my children. I couldn't see my children. I couldn't hug my father. I lost my job. I am depressed. Each one is going to speak about himself in the beginning, right, okay, of the group. Then we have a physical warm-up, playing, moving, dancing, music, etc. And then from the warm-up, one person, each one said, I would like to work today. Not everybody wants to work today. From 12 people, maybe only 3 would like to work today. We choose the protagonist, and then we go into the process I just described. After the catharsis, okay, as I said, there is a cooling down, yeah, maybe corrective experience, etc. Then we have a closure of the psychodrama. We close the psychodrama.
How?
It's not the solution. It's not the final solution, a term which Jews liked very much. Yes, it's not the final solution. It's not a happy end. It's the closure of the psychodrama of the event that we had today. Okay.
Yeah, but can you confront yourself better at the closure?
What do you mean?
Very hard. Well, it's very hard to confront yourself. Let's say you were abused when you were a child, you know, and now 30 years later, you cannot get rid of it and you have to look at it in the mirror. So you have to confront yourself or the abuser, but you have to confront it now.
You confront it through the whole process.
Yes, and then at the end,
you confront it, and at the end of the psychodrama,
yeah,
we close the session. Sometimes you can solve a problem in one session, but if you talk about child abuse, you don't solve it in one session. But you can understand something that you haven't understood before. Maybe, look, eventually, you know, I had sometimes, you know, I had once a psychodrama with a woman who was abused by her father in incest. I did it in one-on-one psychodrama, and it took a year, a full year. Because it took a full year for her to forgive herself.
Right.
You see what I mean? Many times, the young woman who was abused by her father, many times, she blamed herself for not talking about it. You know, many women who were even raped in an early age, they don't forgive themselves, which is terrible. And the most important thing is that, first of all, forgive yourself.
Right.
You haven't done anything wrong. Anything wrong.
But the next step, she can act or play the role of her father and somehow go into.
It's a very difficult question.
That can be more difficult than forgive yourself.
Of course, it's very difficult. So not always I can ask the protagonist to play the role of the perpetrator, of the father who abused him.
Right.
Many times, no. Sometimes, much later in the process, she might be able to do it. Okay. So
the reason why I asked you, because there are so many unspoken stories. I mean, unbelievable. about, forget now sexual harassment, in sex, I speak about just violence toward children, emotional, mentally, put down children, and children carry it with them. But I think it's very, unfortunately, quite not common, but in a lot of families, you have one of them like this, who was abused emotionally, physically.
But you see, it depends. It depends the age of the protagonist. It depends what kind of abuse it was. And it can happen many, many times. Let's say that it wasn't a sexual abuse, but the father was hitting his daughter, And then it might happen, believe me, it happens, that when she reverse role with her father, she might say, I insist, she might say, as the father, look, I loved you. I really loved you. I didn't know, I didn't have a father myself. I didn't have an example. I didn't know how to behave. You know, you were my first child. I didn't know how you were difficult. You were a difficult daughter. It was very difficult. In this age, you know, you were an adolescent, you know, and you really tried to rebel. And I didn't know what to do. I slapped you because I didn't know what to do with you. You know, you ran out of home. I didn't know what to do. And believe me, I really loved you, and I'm sorry that I did it. I know I did it, but I'm very sorry about it. I didn't want to hurt you, but I know that I know that I hurt you. Okay. In one way or another, the father owns it. But who is the father, for God's sake? She played the father. And if she did this role and she had empathy with her father, though she hated him, if she was able to say it and say, I didn't have parents. I didn't know what to do. You were my first child. And it happened so many times, okay? Once she said it, she see it from the other side, from the eye of her father. It's very brave to say it, but it happens so many times in psychodrama. Okay? And when she hears her father saying it, which means that she said it first, and then we have the group member whom she chose to play her father, and he repeats it exactly in the same way. Wow. And when he would say it, she would cry.
I'm almost crying.
Yeah. And she would say, I never knew it. I never saw it. I never saw it. And then I might ask him, I might ask her as the leader, can you forgive him? And she might say, yes. So I would say, please tell him. Or she might say, not yet. She might say, I understand it, I can see it, but I'm not ready yet to forgive it because it was very, very difficult. But I can see his point. I just give you, it happens so many times. It happened to me so many times. Now, but if it was something much, much worse, if it was the father who abused her, if there was a question of incest, you know, it's not easy at all. It might take a year or 2 years, or I don't know how long time for her to forgive. And maybe she won't forgive at all. Maybe and it's right that she won't forgive.
Maybe she shouldn't. I don't know.
And she shouldn't forgive.
In insects, maybe she shouldn't.
But
Hanan, she should not forgive.
There are red lines.
The most important thing, well, you know, many, many times, you know, we are taking a long time to speak about one's issue, but in many, many times, this woman, she would be much more angry at her mother.
That's what I wanted to ask. What happened to the rest of the family?
Because the mother didn't protect her. Many times the mother knew about it. And they try to ignore it. Because if you can imagine, if it was opened up, okay, and the mother would support her. And then she would go to the police. And the father would go to a prison.
Right.
Can you imagine what the shame is on the family losing the breastfeeder, losing the money, you know, the family economically, it's a disaster, the shame. So the mother would just prefer just to ignore it, okay? And then this girl, this woman, would be much more angry with the mother even than the father, because he's a criminal. What can you do? But the mother. So I mean, it is so.
Yes,
I don't want to go into.
So tell me something. So actually, do you think the theater, or when you choose a play or to adapt a play, but this is something else, to what degree you think the theater can facilitate? Let's say that you have a play about this subject. How it's, you know, this, how the theater can really almost bring this catharsis that you almost, you know, that you do it in a group. Can a theater almost do the psychotherapy on stage?
Look, it's not my original idea. This is the basic idea of Aristotle. You call it Aristotle or Aristo?
Aristo, but
it's the same.
Some call it Aristotle.
Yes.
I would like to explain it. Aristotle, who lived in the 4th century before Christ.
Just sit back a little.
Oh my God.
Back? No, yes.
No, because I'm leaning forward.
Yeah, otherwise you're diving. Don't dive in. Dive? Dive. Don't dive. Don't dive in. Oh, don't dive. No. Okay. Go to Aristo.
Aristo is the base. Aristo used the model, I told it before, of Oedipus to explain the process of the Greek tragedy. Oedipus was his model, okay? And Aristo claimed that theater itself, not talking about psychodrama, is therapeutic. He said that when you see a play, by the way, not only theater, but all the arts, because psychodrama is part of expressive therapies, of art therapies, okay? He said even music, you can get so moved by music that something inside you might be, it might change.
Might change.
Emotionally, okay? But mainly theater. And he said, when the audience, they watch a play, okay? And they identify with the hero. And they understand what happened to the hero, okay? By identifying themselves with the hero, okay, they are going through a process themselves. They are going through their own therapy. And if I had to use the example of Oedipus, it's very easy to see it. You see, I mean,
just to be more specific, some people, my mother, I don't think knows about Oedipus.
What?
If you can just say a few words about Oedipus, because my mother doesn't know about Oedipus. You know, she comes from, you know, anyway, she knows a lot about things. But
so why don't you bring your mother? Why do you have to speak to you instead of your mother?
I just used them.
Oh, she's in heaven.
But she's listening.
So let me tell you that psychodrama is the best way to talk to your mother.
Heaven. To go to heaven.
No. Let me just, before I talk to Oedipus, I must say something about it. Let's say, excuse me, using your example of your mother.
It's okay, she's there.
That you didn't have a chance really to say goodbye to your mother because you were away, or because I don't know what happened, the day she died or the week she died, you were in another country. In psychodrama, okay, you might put a chair for your mother.
Wow.
Okay.
You bring her in.
You can work with an empty chair, or you can choose a group member to play your mother. And you might tell your mother, Mommy, I didn't have a chance to say goodbye to you. I would like to take this opportunity and tell you, what did you mean to me? I have to say that I was very angry with you many years because such and such and such. But I remember how much you loved me. I remember how much you gave.
And if it's the abuser,
I remember the difficulties you went through to really let me grow and to educate me. And yes, Yes, I was many times I was angry. And I would like to say goodbye to you. And I would like to say thank you for everything you gave me. And afterwards, you're going to reverse role. And you're going to sit in the chair of your mother.
Your mom.
And your mother is going to tell you
how difficult it was with you.
My darling, I'm so glad that you told me. You never told me that you love me, but I always loved you. And I did my best, etc., etc. And you have a dialogue with your mother.
I think it's fantastic.
You know that after the corona, like post-corona, I think so many people will have to go through this because they couldn't go to their dear ones at the hospitals. And so many...
For corona, it's exactly, I mean, this is really, if I had to give a lecture about that, that would be the lecture.
We may ask you to come again. Listen, we have to finish, but listen. So you may have to come again because you still have to tell my mother about Oedipus. You still have to tell us about other things which are very interesting that you do in the theater. And also it's very important to get some tools to deal with the collective post-trauma that we are going to have. We have not only because of corona, but because the way we are being led.
We're not being led.
In any way we are. Yeah. This is who is guiding, the guiding light. So there is a lot. And we can use this. And I'm just fascinated by what you can do with psychodrama. So Tzili.
What we just said now, psychodrama is a very good way for unfinished business. You can finish an unfinished business with psychodrama. Believe me, I saw it hundreds of times.
But you know, Hanan, you were mentioning something, I'm stealing one more minute, about the audience at the time of a play in a theater. The big difference when you have a group of audience confronting the stage and confronting themselves, the energy, the human energy in the whole is playing a huge role. Yes. Because you basically sitting there, you might agree with what's going on there, or you might disagree, but you're part of a big crowd that affects you and you cannot say anything while it's taking place. And I think that once we get out of the place, it's sometimes you feel bad and sometimes you feel good and sometimes you're angry and you cannot finish the business afterward, you know, and it's very hard. It's very hard, especially when
that's why next time if you have more time, I have to explain to you what Aristo said about it. You have to understand the structure of the Greek theater. They set in amphitheater, in daylight.
Yes.
So what Aristo said, one word, when you get out of the theater of a good play, you're a different person.
Right.
You went through a process. You get out different.
I agree. Hanan, thank you so much.
And thank everybody who came. See you next time. See everybody next week. And however, you had an experience of having a conversation with us, with a dog, with people who are ringing the bell. We're home. So you have everyday life coming into this fantastic conversation. Hanan, thank you so much.
Still Corona.
So. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Thanks. See you next week. Tzuzamen.
You're very welcome, my friends.
Okay.
Bye.